What's up, guys, and welcome to the Top 11 video, and this time we're going to be talking about the top 11 active Premier League players, of course, in their respective positions. We want to make this a sensical thing. We're not just going to be talking about the top players, like all 11 strikers or something like that. It's going to be the top 11 formation, in my opinion, in the Premier League as of right now. And if down the line, if you guys are interested, I might actually do an all-time team, so in the Premier League era, or I guess I could actually extend it to the First Division era, too. So I can pretty much do whatever you guys are interested in seeing, but for right now, I want to do it like this. This was actually a recommendation by my friend Joe Pina. Shout out to him. And I will be doing one for La Liga as well as Serie A. I'm not too interested in doing one for the Bundesliga because it's pretty much just all Bayern Munich players. And Liga 1, there's really nobody interesting because it would just be PSG once again. So let's just go ahead and start with the Premier League team. And some of these are going to be pretty straightforward. I think that some of them are actually going to give you guys some food for thought. Starting off with the goalkeeper, which is Sheffield United's, which is actually Manchester United's goalkeeper, Dean Henderson. And this is a guy that has really burst on the stage this season and shown what an excellent keeper he is. And the fact that, among United fans, it's kind of like, who are we going to have next season? David De Gea, who is seeming like he's going down. Maybe not quite the keeper he was, whether it's from a ability point of view or whether it's just a mental thing. He hasn't been the David De Gea we used to see since the World Cup in Russia. It's like as soon as they got knocked out of as soon as they got knocked out in penalties there, it's like something about his confidence or something. It just hasn't really been the same. So the fact that a fan base who has adored him so much over the past few years, him being our best player season after season after season, and really saving us from even more embarrassing performances than we've actually gotten when we've had a lot. I think that speaks a lot. That speaks a volume about just how good this keeper is, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay at Sheffield for like one more season or maybe two more seasons on loan, and then eventually become our first team keeper. So I think he's a keeper with what the hell was that? I think he's a keeper with excellent potential, and even as of right now, he's really shown to be an amazing keeper. And I feel like the only other keeper you can kind of put on his level with his performances this season is maybe Alisson, but I don't think Alisson is anywhere near as good as people say he is. I feel like he's made a lot of dumb mistakes because he gets overconfident and he does stupid things. So I just feel like he's a great keeper, but I don't think that he's as solid as people might think. So I have some doubts about him. Plus, he's playing behind Virgil van Dijk, and he's playing behind a defense which has been pretty much impeccable, whereas when you're the goalkeeper for Sheffield United, who of course are having an excellent season, but you're still the goalkeeper for Sheffield United, you're going to have a lot more to deal with. And I feel like he has dealt with it pretty much as well as anybody could possibly deal with it. So I feel like Dean Henderson is definitely, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. I'm not saying he's the best goalkeeper all around or something like that. I'm saying he had the best performances this season. When it comes to the left back, and this is a player that I put in my World 11, and of course it is Robertson from Liverpool, a guy who over the last couple of seasons has really exploded and become one of the best fullbacks in the world. I personally think he's probably the best, but you could argue that there are a couple of guys that potentially are better than him. But in the Premier League, I don't really see anybody who's on his level. There's just nobody like that. I mean, Danny Rose was good a little while ago, but he's nowhere near that level anymore. I would say he probably never was at the same level as Robertson, but you get the picture. Like, this is a guy who, in his position, is completely dominant in the league. There's nobody that can really come close to him, whether it's his crossing, whether it's defending, his charisma, because this is a guy who puts everything he has into the matches. Like, we're not talking about a guy who kind of coasts through certain matches, even against the smaller teams. He's not coasting. He's going 100% at all times, and I really, really like the fact that he's so aggressive. And just in general, as a player, I do like him a lot. Now, I don't like the fact that he plays for Liverpool, because of course I'm a United fan, but I do respect him a lot as a player, and I respect what Liverpool has built in general as a whole. It's like they've built an amazing team, and they haven't spent anywhere near as much as Man City, for example. They have spent a lot. Let's not get it twisted. They've spent a lot of money, but they haven't spent anywhere near as much as City, and they've won the Champions League. And realistically, like, no matter what happens, like, even if, like, for some reason, and the Premier League has already been confirmed it's going to be coming back, but if for some reason there's a huge outbreak in the league again for coronavirus, and they cancel it completely, we all know who won the league. So realistically, he's been a major part of Liverpool winning Premier League and the Champions League in the span of 2 seasons. So you got to give them, the team in general, a lot of respect, and Robertson definitely is one of the best players in that team. The first center back I'm going to talk about in this team is Virgil van Dijk. So, of course, another Liverpool player, and they're going to be very prominent. Spoiler alert, it's going to be a lot of Man City. It's going to be a lot of Liverpool in this team. So, you have to put in Virgil van Dijk because I feel like what he has done for this Liverpool team is just simply insane. I talked about this in my World 11. I mean, we're talking about a guy who took a defense that was pretty much consistently conceding 3 to 5 goals a game. This was a team that was capable of destroying teams 6-0 and then going out and just getting hammered the next week by 4 goals. It was a team that was extremely unbalanced going forward. I mean, with like Lovren and Matip, we're talking about pretty piss poor defenders, and they were alongside each other a very, very, very bad combo, especially when they had like Klavan in there. So a shit team, essentially, defensively. And then Virgil van Dijk came in there, and with his composure, with his ability, and simply with his just dominance in general, like he's completely changed that Liverpool team and what they can actually achieve. And I feel like he's arguably the best defender in the world, so you know he has to be in this team. The other center back I'm going to put in here is a Man City center back who they have really, really missed this season, and that is, of course, Laporte. I feel like as soon as he got injured, the season was pretty much over for Man City because John Stones is okay. Otamendi is not quite okay, but he's I guess he's all right. And you know, they don't have great center backs through Man City. So when they lose Laporte, who is an excellent center back and who was much like Van Dijk, the guy who really is the rock at the back for them, the guy who gives them the composure that they need, the guy who can really produce the kind of football that Pep Guardiola wants. When they lose him, they lose pretty much everything. And defensively, they've been shambolic all season long. For fuck's sake, they've lost to us multiple times. And so, you know, and we're, of course, growing as a team. But, like, realistically, the Man City that we've seen of late with players like Laporte in defense, I think that just kind of goes to show you how important he is. So I think it's 100% fair to compare how important Laporte is to Man City to how important Van Dijk is for Liverpool. Now, I don't think they're quite the same level. I think that Van Dijk is definitely a level above him, but we're still talking about an excellent defender and somebody who 100% deserves to be in this team. The right back I'm going to put in there is Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I feel like this is a player with infinite potential. And as I mentioned once again in my World 11 team, is that I believe that the difference between, say, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Alexander-Arnold is the fact that, for me personally, and this is, of course, this is my list, so it doesn't have to be exactly what you guys agree with or something like that. This is just my opinion. The important thing for a fullback, who is a defender, of course, is to defend. If he's excellent attacking, like Marcelo, like Arnold is, that's good. But if they can't defend, I'm not too impressed. So, as good as Alexander-Arnold is offensively, I don't really think he's up to par defensively, which is why I don't quite have him up there on my list. Now, there are people out there, and you might be one of them if you're watching this, that believe that the offensive side of things for fullbacks is actually more important in today's football, and that's perfectly fine, which is why, you know, everybody has their own taste, everybody has their own opinions. But for me, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, what he has shown consistently over the past couple of years, even at Crystal Palace, which of course is a team that really conceded a lot of chances and stuff like that, we're talking about a guy who was always a rock at the back for a side like Crystal Palace, and he's been excellent for us all season long. He's made a couple mistakes, but that's just him being young. I feel like he definitely 100% deserves it. And to really solidify this is the fact that recently Van Aanholt in an interview said, you know, if you ask Zaha who he would rather play against each week between Alexander-Arnold and Wan-Bissaka, he's going to say Alexander-Arnold because Wan-Bissaka is going to lock you down and he's going to be on your ankles every second of the match. And I think that's just kind of sets the two apart. Alexander-Arnold is definitely right there. He's an amazing fullback, but defensively, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is my kind of guy, and that's the kind of fullback just in general that I like. All right, going into the midfield, I'm going to play with a midfield three, and of course, an offensive trident, because I feel like that's the best way to kind of fit everybody in here, because realistically, the best players in the league are the wingers and the striker. There's no doubts about who's going to be up front, I would say. Talk about the midfield, I'm going to go with N'Golo Kante to start off with, my CDM, who's a player that I feel like has really kind of changed the way that we look at CDMs. Now, Makelele was a kind of similar player to him, but in a weird way. Let me put it this way. Like, Makelele was more technical. I would say that Makelele kind of really made that the Makelele role, as they call him. But Kante, I feel like he brings such an intensity, he brings such a speed to it, that it really does kind of change the way people think about it. I think there's only one N'Golo Kante in the world, and I kind of made the comparison to Roy Keane in my World 11 video, and I'm kind of spoiling that one a little bit to you guys if you haven't seen it, but I mean, like, realistically, I think these are pretty much all obvious people that are going to be in the team, except for maybe Wan-Bissaka. But I've been talking about, like, I feel like what really makes Kante special is the fact that he doesn't get tired for 90 minutes. And I compared him to Roy Keane because I feel like the intensity that they both put in there, just the importance they have on the performance of their team is very similar. I would say that the difference is that Roy Keane was more technical, and being the captain and being the leader and being the character he was probably more important and more, I would say, impactful to our United team. But I think that what Kante has done for Leicester, what he's done for Chelsea, and what he's done for France, it has to be remembered. And really, I don't know if I've seen a CDM like him over the past few years. Like, there's Casemiro, who's amazing, but for me, Kante, he's just the best, and by far in the Premier League, there is nobody on his level. The other midfield I want to talk about, he's more of a box-to-box midfielder, is actually Rodri for, of course, Man City. And this is a guy that when he signed for City, I was pretty upset because I was like, they already have an amazing midfield, one of the best in Europe, and they add this guy. And it's just like, I mean, this is a guy who can pretty much do it all. He's physically strong. He's not the fastest, but he's still relatively quick. He's intelligent with his movements. His defensive positioning and actually contributions up front are very, very solid. So this is a guy who is extremely well-rounded and can pretty much do it all. Whereas Kante is more of like a defensive specialist. He's more of a well-rounded player, and I feel like on his day, he's going to dictate the match, and that's actually pretty scary. Now, a candidate I would have put in here was actually Paul Pogba, but unfortunately, I feel like, Paul Pogba on his day, like if he's actually playing to the levels that we know Paul Pogba can play, there's pretty much nobody like him in the world. He's got that physicality, he's got that technique, and he's a completely unique physical player. All right, he's just completely on his own in terms of the kind of player he is. But unfortunately, he hasn't really, between injuries and, of course, issues with Jose Mourinho and his manager just always being in the press talking shit, it just hasn't really worked out for him. And I feel like if Paul Pogba can get to the levels that we know Paul Pogba can get to, he's definitely going to be in this team next season. But as of right now, he hasn't quite been impactful enough. And like I said, he's been injured all season. So it's kind of hard to put him in there when he hasn't played that many matches. Going into the attacking midfielder, you know who it's going to be. It's Kevin De Bruyne. I guess some honorable mentions would have been maybe James Maddison. But, I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, he's undeniably one of the best footballers in the world. I would love to have him in my team. And he's just one of those players that I've really been a big fan of for a very long time. Before he went to Chelsea, all that stuff. He was definitely on my radar, and he was a player that I always used to get in FIFA. I mean, the technical abilities, whether it's hitting pinpoint passes from 50 yards out, whether it's just perfect shots, whether it's free kicks, it doesn't matter. Whatever you ask De Bruyne to do, he's going to do it, and he's actually capable defensively because he puts everything he has into each and every match. So he's just a phenomenal footballer and one of the best players in the world, and I would definitely put him in this team over pretty much anybody in world football. Moving into the attacking players, and you look at the right wing, and I think there's only one player you can really put in here, which is Mohamed Salah. And I think that Salah, he has just consistently showed over the past couple of years that teams like Fiorentina, like Roma, like even Chelsea, they made big mistakes in selling the guy. Now, I'm not saying he's this amazing player. I honestly think he's kind of overrated, and I'm not saying... what I mean by that is, in the other teams he's played, in the other systems he's played in, he's never been this impactful. Like, even at Chelsea, he was kind of embarrassingly bad a lot of times. But in this particular system, where it's all about pretty much the entire team pressing and having a ton of space to attack in behind the defense, with his just blistering pace and with his left foot, he's been very, very good. And I think, you have to continue to put him up there because even this season, he's been just phenomenal for Liverpool. So, I mean, he's definitely, I would say, deserving to be in this team, where while I don't quite think he's as good in general as it looks like, and I know that kind of sounds weird, but I just feel like if he plays out of this system, he's not going to be quite as good. But regardless, he has to be in this team. And on the left wing, I have Mane, who I definitely think is... And this is a player that I've been a big fan of for a long time. Ever since the Southampton days, I was a huge fan of Sadio Mane. This is a guy I had in Ultimate Team, I had in career mode. I've been a huge, huge fan of him for a very long time because I feel like he's just, offensively, in my opinion, is the best player that Liverpool have. His only problem is that he misses sitters. If he was able to finish, like if he had that deadly finishing, like say, I don't know, like say Salah actually does pretty much have, but the only difference is that Salah only has 1 foot, whereas Mane is very two-footed, and I feel like Mane can actually play throughout the entire offensive line just because he's actually physically strong too, whereas Salah, if you put him anywhere other than on the right wing, I don't think he quite performs as well. But Mane, you can put him pretty much anywhere. You can actually play him as a cam as well, because he's very intelligent. I think his passing is excellent, so you could definitely put him anywhere and he's going to shine. So Mane, in my opinion, has consistently shown to be the best offensive player that Liverpool has, and I think he has to be in this team. And when it comes to the striker, this is where it's kind of difficult to choose, because you have Jamie Vardy, who's having an amazing season. You have Aguero, who is always, I would say, the best striker in the league. And then you have Harry Kane, who is right there, he's just been scoring fucking buckets of goals every season now, ever since he really burst on the scene for Tottenham. And it's hard to choose between the three. Now, Vardy might be having, from a personal point of view, a better season because he's been fit. He's been really contributing to an excellent season for Leicester, once again, really being a carrier for a team that isn't anywhere near as good as what they're achieving right now, at least in terms of an individual point of view. But between Brendan Rodgers really coaching this team excellently, to be honest, like tactically, and even from a energy point of view, this team is just performing at stellar levels. But Jamie Vardy is definitely the face of that, with his goals, with his personality too, because he is kind of outspoken and he is an interesting person. I feel like he's definitely deserving to be in the honorable mentions, and same thing with Harry Kane. I think it's very hard to find a striker in the world right now who is as clinical as him, and who is just an all-out striker. Like a lot of players nowadays, they aren't your typical strikers that we used to see in the 90s and the early 2000s. And I feel like Harry Kane is definitely a throwback to, say, Alan Shearer and stuff like that. He's not really a player who's going to really contribute to the build-up play, but once he's in the box, he's going to do a lot. So definitely a lot of respect to Harry Kane. But for me, the best striker in the league is 100% Sergio Aguero. And this is a guy that consistently over the years has just been extremely dominant. His only problem is that he does have a lot of injury problems, and that has really held him back. And I feel like if he doesn't get to Alan Shearer's record, because I don't think he is, because he's still very far out. Now, he could still potentially do it if he's able to stay fit and, average over 30 goals a season, which it is doable for him. But honestly, with the amount of injury problems he has and the fact that he probably will eventually leave City, especially because his whole thing was that he wanted to win the Champions League, and now that Champions League football is, at least for now, unless City manage to corrupt UEFA, which is very, very doable, and be allowed to participate in the next Champions League, then he might potentially leave. We'll see what happens there. But if he stays, I think he'll get close to the record, maybe within 20 to 30 goals, but I don't think he's going to beat it. But that doesn't mean that Sergio Aguero isn't an amazing striker. And this is a guy that even in Football Manager 2005, when he was still playing in Argentina, I would always sign this guy, or maybe it was already, I think he had just gone to Atletico, but regardless, I used to always sign him. He would be alongside Wayne Rooney, alongside Carlos Tevez, alongside amazing players that I would buy from all across the world, because I knew that there were excellent talents. I would bring them all in, and I would put them together, and Sergio Aguero has always been one of my favorite players. Like, despite playing for a team that I don't like, I have nothing but respect for Aguero, and he is just a sensational footballer. And realistically, if he were to go to Real Madrid or something like that, he would definitely be a Ballon d'Or candidate if he could stay fit. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of my team. Who would you take out? Who would you put in? And am I retarded for putting in specific people over others? Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.